Hello and welcome to today's Bitrix24 webinar, Better Business Processes. Thank you for joining today. Okay, so we'll just go through some introductions. So my name is Sam Connor. I'm part of the sales team here at Interface. And we're based in the UK, the US and Hong Kong. And we offer a full range of services to help you with Bitrix24. So starting off, we can offer pre-sales support. So essentially we can help you to evaluate Bitrix24 to see if it would be a good solution for your business. And if it is, we can then set up the system for your specific requirements. If you're looking for hosting of the self-hosted edition, we do offer our own hosting services. And we can provide you with comprehensive training and ongoing support to help you get the biggest return on your investment of using Bitrix24. Okay, so if you come to today's webinar to actually get some more details about Bitrix24, let's just cover what Bitrix24 actually is. So it is a collaboration suite of well in excess now of 35 different modules and tools that you can use to help you essentially manage your business. And specifically today we're going to be focusing on the tools where we can implement our very own processes and workflows in the Bitrix24 system. Now there are over 10 million customers now around the world that use Bitrix24. And the system is available in two different editions. Okay, so we have the Bitrix24 cloud system and we have the Bitrix24 self-hosted solution. Now we will cover the differences between the two systems in today's webinar. The key feature to kind of take on account right now is that the self-hosted system has access to the API and the source code. So if we need to create maybe advanced workflows, if we need to use some source code to actually create the workflow, we would need to look at a self-hosted solution. And prices start from $49 per month for a cloud-based system and $2,990 for a lifetime license for the self-hosted solution. Okay, so today's webinar is Better Business Processes. So we're going to be covering how we can create processes in Bitrix24. So first of all, let's just understand what a business process actually is. So a business process is a flow of information defined either by a route or a scheme. And there are different types of ways we can actually manage business processes in Bitrix24. So first of all, we can have a sequential business process. And a sequential business process performs a series of consecutive actions on an item from a predefined start point to a predefined end point. So if we just go into our Bitrix24 system, this is a sequential business process. So we have a start point here, and we can then see the process which has been built. So we're going through different conditions and blocks here until we get to this endpoint in the system. We then have a state-driven business process. And a state-driven business process does not have start and endpoints. It has a series of statuses, and each status triggers a child process. So let's now go back into our system here, and we can see looks very different first of all. So looking from the sequential process to the state-driven process here, this is a lot different. So we can see here we have the different status, and we can then see the different actions underneath here. So this is very commonly used on documents. So if a document is moved to the approval status, it's then going to follow this particular action. And the third type of business process is CRM automation and also robotic process automation. It uses very similar technology. So if we just go back into the system here, we can go into our CRM automations. So these automations here are available on leads, deals, SPAs and RPAs. So here what we can do is we can see the different automation actions that we can run. This is in the lead section of the CRM system. So here we have our lead stages, and we can then at each stage of the process we can automate activity. Okay, so for example at the check back in stage we have a task which is going to be sent to the user in the system, and we have a deadline on that task. So we can create actions at different stages of this is our lead process. And we can also create triggers. And a trigger will automatically update the stage that that lead is at. So for example, it could be at this initial stage, at the new lead stage, we send out a thank you email to the lead, thanking them for their inquiry. And what we could do is we could have an email link on that email. So if they click on that link, we've created an email link trigger here. They click that link, they will automatically move to this looking good stage, because the trigger will automatically move them from new lead to looking good. And that's very useful, because if they are engaging with us, then we have a high chance of qualifying that lead. So we can use automations here. And quite a new feature is the robotic process automation tool. And essentially this allows us to create our own workflows and processes, but rather than having to use the sequential business process designer, which it can be quite complex for some people to actually build their own structures in here. We obviously provide training and ongoing support to help you. You can use a lot of the functionality from the CRM to build out your own processes. So here from this business trip RPA, we have the different stages that we're processing the workflow through. And you can see here we set up automation rules to streamline the process. So very similar, you can see how similar this looks to the actual lead section we've just been in. And then what we can do is we can manage the actual worker of the workflow, creating the automation rules and the triggers that we need to run. Okay, so that there is a look at the different types of business processes. So let's now take a look at actually how those processes are managed. So we'll look at where they can be run and how they are created, and also what can actually trigger them. Okay, so first of all then, looking at how we run business processes. So we need to understand where we can actually run these business processes from. So we can run these from inside the HR and admin section. So we want to maybe send a leave request, we can do that from the home page. In the CRM system, on most CRM modules such as leads, deals, contacts and companies, we can run the processes. Also within the SPAs, so that is the smart process automation tool, we can also create automation rules inside there. On documents, we can automatically or manually trigger, such as maybe an approval of a document. Inside lists in a project, you can run maybe a sequential business process. On tasks and also on orders, we can also create processes. So you can see there is a lot of areas within Bitrix24 where we can run business processes. There isn't really one area, there are lots of areas. So let's now go back into our system and let's just have a look at some of those in more detail. If we do have any questions as we keep running through the Better Business Processes webinar today, please do add them into the question box on the YouTube channel and we'll run through those during the intervals of today's webinar. Okay, so just to go through some of those areas where we can run those business processes. So here we are on our feed section and we can see here we have the workflow area. So this now opens up all of the workflows that I have access to start triggering that process. So let's say I want to request some new annual leave for a holiday. I can open the request leave form and I can fill in that form to submit my leave request. Now, as the administrator, we can actually customize what workflows show in that front end of our workflow section. So if we go into the workflow area and into the workflow directory, what we can do is we can turn on and turn off what workflows we would like to show in the feed section. So let's say, for example, we don't want to show the business trip actually anymore. We can turn that feature on and off. So it's really simple for the administrator to decide what workflows we would like to display at any given point. Okay, let's go into the CRM system. So we've already mentioned about automations on your stages such as leads and deals. We can also run business processes inside contacts and companies. So here in the workflow design section here, let's say for example we want to get some feedback from the client, so we could run our client feedback workflow by clicking the button there. Okay, and we can see that workflow has been initiated. So that's how we can manually trigger a workflow directly inside our CRM system. Moving on to the drive area. Inside your documents, we can set up business processes. One thing just to point out here in the company drive, we need to go into the configure business processes first, and you need to activate the business processes button there. So just be careful, if you're not seeing the business processes, that will be why, because you've not actually created the button to have the processes show. But then from there, what we can do, let's go into one of our documents. And from here, what I can do is I can set up and see all of the details about my documents. And if we go into the settings on the company drive, then what we can do is we can decide what business processes we would like to show on our documents. Okay, so now moving on to the work groups. So work groups are where we can manage projects. So we won't go into too much detail today. We do have a task and project management webinar where we focus specifically on how you manage projects. But if we just go into the lists element, this is essentially where we can run and store tables of information associated to the project. So here, for example, we have all of the expenses associated to the project, and on one of those expenses I could run an approval process. So that can now go to my manager of the project to either approve or reject that new expense in the system. So I might want to actually just see all of those that are currently pending approval, and we can see all of that information. And if you're one of the administrators, I could configure that business process directly from the project. Okay, so that's a look at some of the different areas within the system that we can run those business processes. And now let's actually take a look at how we can actually create a business process. Okay, so the Bitrix24 system does include a very advanced visual editor tool for building business processes. And it uses very simple drag and drop technology to enable you to create your business processes. And it includes over 40 pre-built action blocks that you can use to complete your specific workflow. Okay, so what we're going to do now is go into our Bitrix system to see how we can create our own workflow using the Business Process Designer tool. And specifically, we're going to focus on the deals. So we're going to create a workflow, so the process is going to continuously look at what stage the deals are at. And if it moves to a specific stage, we're going to create specific actions. Now, what we're going to show you here, just as a word of warning, we wouldn't recommend you try to create your own workflows by yourself because they are fairly complex to do. You should really have an experienced partner like ourselves help you with initial training to set up workflows. We have lots of our customers who actually come to us and ask us to build the workflows for them, because essentially what we can do is save you an awful lot of time and our internal resources if you look at the bigger picture, we can save you that time so you can focus on other areas of your business. So if you do want help to set up workflows, please contact sales@intraface.com. We can be in touch to discuss your workflow in some more detail and see how we can help you. But okay then, so let's go back into our CRM because we're going to create this workflow on our deal database. So if we go into our deal section, what we're going to be doing is looking in the UK office pipeline, and we're going to be looking at all of these different stages here to actually trigger our workflow. Okay, so let's go into the settings, and we need to actually go into the business process designer section. So what we're going to do is go into automation and into business processes, and then from there we're going to add a new template into deals. Okay, so we're going to open that up, and first of all we need to give this a name. So we're going to call this, because we're looking at the deals section, it's always good to date them as well if it's a new one. So we can add the title there first of all, and then what we need to select is actually when this is run. So we're going to actually be doing this when the deal gets updated. So we want to run this when it is changed. So when the deal changes, anything in the deal changes, we're going to be looking to see if one of those changes is based on the stage the deal is at. Okay, but what we can also do, you might want to run this when the deal is just added, for example, or you might just want to show this in the manual start. So where we went into the contact section and we manually created the client feedback workflow, that would be manually creating it. Okay, so there's different ways we can do this. We're going to do it when it is changed. And what this is the sequential business process. Now hopefully you can see why, because we have a start point and we have an end point. And then on the right hand side here we have all of the different action blocks that we can use to construct our business process. Okay, so first of all what we're going to add is some conditions, because we're going to be looking at what stages the actual deal is at. So what we want to do now is we want to populate out our process. So first of all we're going to add some conditions into here. So we're going to be looking at the field. So we want to get the stage here, and we're going to do this when the quote is, let's say when the quote is sent. So we're going to change this to sent quote. Okay, so that one is done. So I'm just going to do this now for these other two. So we're going to look at two different stages here. Okay, so that's the quote approved, and then the last one we're going to do is based when the stage is actually moved to the deal is won. Okay. Okay, so we've got our three conditions there. So first of all, we're looking when the quote is at, when the deal is at the send quote stage, when the quote is at the quote approved stage, and when the deal has hit the deal won stage. So when any change is made in the deal, the workflow is going to be working to see is the deal at any of these stages. And then what we can do is we can add our actions. So from here we can then go into here and choose our actions. I've already got some we've created. So let's say, for example, when the quote is sent, let's just say we're going to choose one of our conditions. Let's say we're going to wait 7 days. So we can give them a bit of time. But then after that, 7 days is up, let's trigger the creation of a phone call so we can get back in touch with the customer. And then if we move to the quote approved, that's great, but maybe we need to just do a credit check to make sure we are able to sell to this particular customer. Okay, and then from there, what we can do when the deal is won is we can actually, let's say we want to notify the sales manager the deal has been won. And what we could then do is maybe send a thank you to the customer, thanking them for their order. So you can see here there's lots of really useful actions we can add into our workflow design tool here. And essentially what we can do is streamline our sales process. That's what this is all about. We're able to streamline all of the activity for our sales team, so nothing has to be done manually inside the system here. And if we just go into any of these conditions here, you can then populate all of the information. So if you're going to send out an email, for example, you can add the text into here, so everything can be customized based on what you want it to show. Okay, so that's how we can use the Business Process Designer. But we could also, for example, use automations as well to streamline the process. So using automation rules, we might create tasks for someone at a certain stage in our process, for example. And at the start here, we might send out an email to the contact. Okay, so there's lots of different features we could enable inside here. And if we do use these automation rules, all of the activity will show inside the activity stream here for you to view. Okay, so that's a look there at how we can create our very own business process using the Business Process Designer tool. Now we're going to actually check how we can trigger business processes. So actually how the process is triggered in the first place. We did briefly mention this when we went to create that brand new business process, so how we might do it when item is changed or updated, or we might just run this manually. So triggering the business processes inside the cloud, first of all, this can be done when an item is created or updated. So a really good example of this is when you create a deal, for example. When the deal is created, that could trigger the process, or if an update is made to that deal, let's say the deal changes stages, that could trigger the business process. You can also manually run those, so as we saw in the CRM when we went into the contact Mark Moon, we manually created a process from the top right hand corner. You can also create webhooks, so if you wanted to have a webhook integration to trigger the creation, that's possible. And with the self-hosted edition, we could maybe trigger them from external applications, such as the integration of an email. So quite a useful feature with the self-hosted edition of Bitrix24 is the help desk system. And we can create a new help desk ticket in the help desk system for our support team from an email being sent to a particular mailbox. So let's say, for example, you set up a support at mailbox. When a customer emails that particular mailbox, that could create a brand new ticket in your help desk system. So if we just go into our control panel, I just want to show you this in some more detail. Okay, so here we have our help desk section. But what we can do first of all is we can integrate our mailboxes. And then what we can do is we can create rules. And as I say, one of those rules could be that when an email comes into a particular mailbox, we could then automatically have a new ticket created in our help desk system that we can then action. Okay, so that's a really nice additional feature available with the self-hosted edition. And just in terms of a note with the self-hosted solution, we are able to provide our own hosting options for you, and essentially we can provide a private cloud instance. So when we say self-hosted, you don't need to be worried about how this can be set up. We can manage the entire hosting aspect of the project for you, so you don't need to worry about that. So if you are interested in that, please do let me know. Okay, so that's a look there at the help desk system. Okay, so what we're going to look at now are a few live examples of actually how we can run business processes inside the system. Okay, so first of all, we're going to look at how we can create a new project inside our Bitrix24 system. So it's important to understand this particular process we have developed. So if you do need any help, if you are interested in setting up a process like this, then please do contact sales@intraface.com and we can help you to set up a process like this. And then we'll have a look at a few other processes in the system as well. Okay, so we're going to look at how we can create a new project inside the system. And this is really useful because let's say, for example, if you have just won a new deal in the CRM system, you might need to then create a group for all of the project team who need to actually then work on the implementation of what has been purchased. So what we can do is we could create a workflow to bring a group of people together, and we could set up specific tasks that need to be completed. So essentially we can take out all of the human error that could be involved in creating that project. So let's go into here and we can open up the new project form. And this then opens up the form that we need to complete. Now, all of the information in here, so we've got this fields that we need to complete information for. This is completely customizable. So we can see here what are mandatory fields inside here, and then also what are additional fields where we can add additional information. You can decide what's mandatory and you can decide what fields you want to show here. So it may be you want to have a drop down list that people select some information from. It's completely up to you. Okay, so let's go into here and add a new project. Okay, so we're going to add some new roles into here. So we've got a manager role and a designer. And we need to then add a deadline for the project. And then what we're going to do is we're going to check what type of project this is. So this is quite important because based on this selection here, this will then decide what people are brought into the project and what tasks are added for us to work on. So I'm going to select project A. Okay, and then because I've been made responsible for this particular project, I need to add some additional details. And I'm going to approve the project. Okay, so now let's go into our workgroup section. And we can see inside here we have the business process project set up. And from here what we can see is this project has been set up for us. It's brought through specific members of the team that are going to be working on the project, and it's created a task inside here that we can now start working on. So I can track my time and start working and collaborating with people on this task. So that's how we can start to run that process. So it can just alleviate any human error that could happen on a project. You might invite the wrong people. You might have somebody who's not invited that is critical to the project. You might have created the wrong types of tasks inside here. So this is really useful because it will just save you so much time. And if we just go into the workflow directory, I just want to show you kind of the back end of how this looks inside the system. Okay, so we can see all of our workflows, and let's go into the project itself. So this is the background of that workflow we have just run. So this was the creation of our project. So first of all, we added all of the details about the project, and then we had to select, remember how we had to select between project A and project B. So based on that condition there, we selected project A, so it created the scoping project with all of the details about the task. But if we had selected project B, then we would have got the design and the development task. So you can see how based on that condition it's completely routed what information is then added into that particular project. Okay, so that is a look how we could run a project directly inside the system. Now let's go into the CRM system and let's just take a look at how the automation rules could work if you're bringing on new inquiries in the platform. Okay, so here we have a new lead in the system and it's a brand new lead, and we can see different sections of our automation process that need to run as we progress the lead through different stages. So if we move this lead to the arrange meeting stage, we can now see that automatically it will create a new meeting task inside the system. And if we then go to the check back in stage, or maybe further on we can move to the looking good stage, we can create all of the activities inside here that can be automated. So we can see here that arrange meeting task has been added into the system, and it's also added a deadline for when this task has to be completed by. So we can have those critical time parameters on any activity that we create inside the system. Okay, so that's a look there at how we can manage different types of business processes inside the system. And as we say, if you do have any questions about how you can create business processes, please do contact sales@bitrix24.com. What we can do is we can set up a meeting with you to discuss your requirements in more detail, and we can see how we can help you. Okay, so just to briefly mention some of the key differences between the cloud and the self-hosted edition. Okay, so most of the tools are available in both the cloud and self-hosted solutions. They both include the editor tool on the professional cloud system, and that means you can create processes using the sequential business process designer tool. And processes can be in documents, in HR features, inside the CRM, and on lists. You can also create leads from web forms. So you could have a form on your website. When somebody submits their details on that form, that can automatically create you a brand new lead inside the CRM. I think really the main difference between and the benefit of the self-hosted is the option to run processes on extra modules, such as if you were to integrate a mailbox, we could then trigger the creation of a help desk ticket in the help desk module. But we can also create advanced automations via integration. So it could be you might want to integrate with an external platform, which could then trigger the creation of a new process inside Bitrix24. With the self-hosted system, we can be very advanced in how those workflows are triggered. Okay, so in summary today, we've seen how we can run business processes in lots of different areas of the Bitrix24 system. So they can be run on documents, in the CRM, in the HR areas, and on lists. And we've seen how we can use simple drag and drop workflow technology to actually create our very own business processes inside the system. And business processes can be triggered in a variety of ways. So they can be triggered manually, they can be done automatically on an update or a change, and it can be done by external applications such as via an email and or an API call. Okay, so here are a selection of the up and coming webinars we have soon. So we're here every Tuesday at 11 AM Eastern Time. If you do have any questions before next week's webinar, please do contact sales@interface.com. We'll be happy to set up a meeting with you to discuss those in more detail with you. But just want to say thank you very much for your time today. Bye for now, and look forward to seeing you next week.